was my idea for the DHF, not how it works in general, but to add it to Steem. And at that time, what happened was we had Steemit, the company, which was supposed to be doing development for Steem, and they weren't doing much. They were doing very, very little, to be honest, and stuff wasn't happening. And I was kind of disappointed with the rate, the speed of development, and there was really no system to encourage anyone else to do development because Steem had basically had such a high stake. They had an interest, at least theoretically, in developing the software, although they weren't doing much. But no one else could really be justified the amount of labor involved. And plus, Steemit was kind of in your way anyways because they generally didn't want you to do anything for them. So my idea was, and since they weren't spending money, and I knew Ned did not want to spend money, I proposed to Ned that we had a way that could fund other developers. And that's really why the DHF got created. And at the time, honestly, I was also thinking of using it to help fund some of my developers to work on Steem. So that's why. And then as far as the mechanics of how we chose, I'd worked on a previous blockchain called BitShares, and it had something very similar to DHF. It had a funding mechanism built in where it could fund people. And so we basically looked at that system and basically copied a lot of the details of it. It's not exactly the same, but they're very, very similar. We made a couple changes that I thought were improvements, but I kept it to a minimum because we had to do this on a we had to write the code for the DHF on a relatively cheap budget. So we weren't investing a huge amount of money in it. So I feel like I'm trying to remember how much we charged for it. I think we only charged like $50,000 for the entire thing to develop it and stuff. And one of the big changes we made that I think is most significant was that we pay in a stable coin instead of the coin of the the native coin. And that has a really big advantage because what I saw in the BitShares world, and some of this is experience I learned watching how their version of the DHF worked. I forget what it's called right offhand, but the way it worked there, because it was paid in the native coin price could go up or down tremendously. So somebody would wind up either getting paid way too much for what they're doing or way too little, depending on the coin price at any time. And once either the developers or everybody who was voting for it were unhappy at any given time, generally. So we saw that I decided that a stable coin approach would work better. That's why we pay an HBD instead of Hive.